$600 for a driver, and the wrench that came with it is still in the original plastic sleeve, tucked in the side pocket of your bag, where it's been since the day you walked out of the fitting bay. You adjusted the loft once, hit 3 balls, and put it back, telling yourself you'd figure it out later. That later never came, and the driver is now the most expensive paperweight you own. Here's the uncomfortable part. The industry needs you to believe that adjustability is a deep, complex science, a world of hosel settings and weight tracks and face angles that only a trained fitter can unlock. Because the moment you realize how simple it actually is, that only a handful of settings genuinely change how the ball flies for a golfer like you, the premium you paid starts to look a lot less like performance and a lot more like theater. So here's the promise, and I'll prove it before this is over. There are exactly 3 settings on your driver that matter, ranked by the yards they give you back. The first is probably the one you've set and forgotten. The second is the one the fitting cart never mentioned. And the third is the one that will fix the miss you've been fighting for 2 seasons. By the time we're done, you'll know which ones to touch and which ones to leave alone forever. Because the real scam isn't the driver, it's the noise. Let me set the scene properly, because this is where every golfer I've ever talked to starts. You love the game. You love the first tee at dawn, the smell of cut grass, the sound of a perfectly struck ball leaving the face. And you also love the gear. There's a reason the pro shop feels like a candy store, and it's not an accident. You walk into a fitting bay with its launch monitors and its screens and its easy lighting, and it all feels very scientific. Very serious. The fitter talks about spin rates and launch windows and shaft profiles, and you nod along, signing for the upgrade because you want to believe this is the missing piece. That's the moment the system catches you, not with a bad product, but with a good one that's wrapped in just enough complexity to justify the price. And here's the part that almost nobody says out loud. Your game has probably not improved in proportion to what you've spent. You've bought the forgiveness, the adjustability, the technology, and somewhere deep down, you know the scorecard hasn't changed the way the marketing promised it would. That quiet gap between what you paid and what you got is the entire engine of this channel, and it starts with a club that has too many dials. That gap between the driver's price and your scorecard is the quiet cost nobody in the fitting bay will name for you. Subscribe if you want the real numbers behind that markup, because the contradiction is already sitting in your bag waiting to be exposed. In the comments, write dead money. What you just heard is the surface. The Dead Money Golf ebook goes 7 levels deeper. Every mechanism, every markup, every number fully sourced. 120 pages of what we can't post here. Plus the vault, 5 private video investigations that exist nowhere else. Link in the description and pinned comment. If you've ever bought the forgiveness and watched your handicap refuse to move. If you've ever stood in that fitting bay, watching the numbers climb on the screen, and felt that little flutter of hope that this time, finally, the equipment will do the work, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That hope is the product. The driver is just the delivery system. Now let's talk about the contradiction, because it's staring right at you every time you reach for the wrench. The average adjustable driver on the market today offers a dizzying array of options. Loft settings that range across several degrees, weight tracks that slide back and forth, hosel sleeves that promise to change your face angle, your lie angle, your launch window, your spin rate, your entire relationship with the golf ball. It's a masterpiece of engineering, and it's also a masterpiece of distraction. Here's what the evidence shows. Most golfers, and I mean most, adjust their driver once or twice in the first week they own it, and then never touch it again until the day they trade the club in. The wrench goes in the pocket, the sleeve gets set to whatever the fitter scribbled on the receipt. And all that adjustability, all that carefully engineered choice just sits there, doing nothing, while you keep paying for it. Think about that for a second. You paid a premium for a feature you use once, and then you're told that the feature is what makes the club special. That's not performance. That's a pricing strategy dressed up as technology. And it's worse than that, because the adjustability isn't just useless to you, it's actively working against you. Every setting you don't understand is one more reason to convince yourself the club isn't working properly. Every miss becomes a potential equipment problem. Every bad drive becomes a justification for a new driver, a new shaft, a new fitting session, another expensive round trip through the upgrade treadmill. The system is built to make you doubt your equipment, because doubt is what drives the next purchase. Here's where the money story really takes shape, and it's the part the fitting bay never mentions. When you buy that $600 driver, the adjustability isn't just a feature, it's the justification for the price tag. The manufacturing cost difference between a driver with an adjustable hosel and a fixed one is real, but it's nowhere near the price difference you're paying. The rest of that premium is the perceived value of choice. The industry knows that a golfer will pay more for a club that claims to be customizable even if they never touch the settings. So the number of settings keeps growing, the complexity keeps increasing, and the price keeps climbing. All while the average golfer's swing stays exactly the same as it was 10 years ago. Remember the wrench sitting in your bag. It's not a tool. It's a receipt for a system that needs you to believe in complexity. That wrench in your bag is the receipt, and now you can see what it's actually a receipt for. Subscribe if you want to keep tracing how the pricing is built before you ever step on the tee. In the comments, write dead money. What you just heard is the surface. The Dead Money Golf ebook goes 7 levels deeper. Every mechanism, every markup, every number fully sourced. 120 pages of what we can't post here. Plus the vault. 5 private video investigations that exist nowhere else. Link in the description and pinned comment. If you've ever paid for adjustability, you've never touched after the fitting. But here's the thing that changes everything. The pivot that flips this whole equation. The adjustability on your driver is real. There are settings that genuinely matter, that can add real yards and fix real misses. The problem isn't that the features are fake, it's that 90% of them are optimization. And you don't need optimization. You need correction. Optimization is for a golfer who's already hitting the ball well and wants to squeeze out the last few yards. Correction is for the rest of us, the ones who are losing distance and accuracy because the club doesn't fit the swing we actually have, not the swing we think we should have, or the swing the fitter assumed we wanted. And that's where the only 3 settings that matter come in. Not because they're the flashiest, not because they're the most fun to fiddle with, but because they're the ones that actually move the needle for most golfers. The first one, and it's not even close, is loft. Golf.com talked to a fitter about this, and the quote is straightforward. Adjusting the loft on your driver has the biggest impact on launch and spin. For most amateurs, that's the single lever that changes everything. Your typical golfer hits down on the ball, which adds spin and makes the ball launch too low. The drive that starts low and dives, or the one that balloons and falls out of the sky. Turning the loft up on your driver, even by a single degree, changes the launch window and takes spin off the shot. And the numbers here are not small. When you get the loft right, the difference shows up as real yards, often in the double digits. That's not optimization. That's correction. 90% of golfers who could fix 10 yards of lost distance with a 1-degree loft change would never even think to look at it, because the default setting feels fine. But fine is the enemy of better. Here's the thing that makes loft so powerful. It's free, it's instant, and it's sitting in your bag right now. The same wrench that's been in your pocket since the fitting day is the tool that can unlock 10 yards of distance. The adjustment takes 30 seconds. The settings are printed right on the sleeve, and the only reason you haven't done it is that nobody ever told you it matters this much. If you've ever stood on the tee box, watched your drive balloon high and short, and told yourself the wind was wrong, this is the setting that would have proven the wind was innocent. Now the second setting, and this one surprises people. It's not even on the driver head, it's in your hands. Shaft weight. When I say this is one of the only 3 adjustments that matter, I'm not talking about the grip or the flex or the bend profile that the fitting cart tries to sell you. I mean the raw weight of the shaft. Most golfers are playing shafts that are heavier or lighter than what their swing needs, and it's costing them yards without them ever knowing why. Here's the mechanic. A shaft that's too heavy makes you late on the downswing, so you block the ball out to the right. A shaft that's too light makes you overswing, so you lose your timing and hit it all over the club face. Either way, you lose speed, you lose accuracy, and you start shopping for a new driver when the real problem is in the club you're holding. The yard difference here is real. Get the weight right, and you're gaining anywhere from a handful of yards to double digits, just from being able to load the club the way your body naturally wants to. Your swing already knows what to do. The equipment is holding it back. And here's the kicker, you can't adjust shaft weight with the wrench. But you don't need to, because the fix isn't buying a new driver. It's knowing what weight to look for the next time you do buy, or finding a shaft that fits for far less than the price of a whole new club. The fitting industry has built an entire economy around making shaft selection feel like dark magic. Weight, flex, bend profile, torque, kick point, launch angle. But for most golfers, weight is the lever that matters. The rest is optimization. The weight is correction. And this is where the money story connects. When you understand that shaft weight is doing most of the work, you stop paying for the premium shaft the fitter recommended and start asking a simple question. What weight should I be playing? That one question saves you hundreds of dollars and fixes your actual miss at the same time. That one question, what weight should I be playing, is where the smart money cuts the fitter out of the loop. Subscribe before you close this video, because the third lever is the one that makes shaft weight look like nothing, and it's already coming. In the comments, write dead money. What you just heard is the surface. The Dead Money Golf ebook goes 7 levels deeper. Every mechanism, every markup, every number fully sourced. 120 pages of what we can't post here. Plus the vault. 5 private video investigations that exist nowhere else. Link in the description and pinned comment. If you've ever paid for a shaft fitting that didn't fix your miss, that's exactly the kind of story this channel was built to expose. Now wait. Let's look at the numbers before I give you the third one, because the third is the one that will make you put the wrench down and stare at your driver. Most golfers, when they think about adjusting their driver, think about distance. They want the loft to add yards, the weight to add club head speed, the face to add some magic. And those things matter. But the biggest yardage gains you'll ever see in your game come from a different place entirely. Accuracy. When you stop losing balls, when you stop playing your second shot from behind a tree, when you stop dropping a shot every third hole because your drive found the wrong fairway, you save more strokes than any distance gain will ever give you. And the setting that controls this, more than any other, is face angle. Now let's get back to the course for a second, because this is where the theorem meets the grass. You've got a driver that you've never really dialed in, and you're standing on a tee box facing a fairway that's 40 yards wide. You're playing to a handicap that tells everyone, including you, that you're a decent golfer. But there's a pattern to your misses. A signature, a shape you keep hitting even when you think you're swinging well. Most golfers I talk to think their miss either ballooning the ball or blading it off the toe. But the real miss that costs strokes is the lateral one. The block that slides right, the hook that never turns over, the shot that starts in the wrong place and ends up further from the fairway than where you started. That miss isn't a swing flaw. It's a face angle problem. A driver's face angle is the direction the club face points at address, and the settings on your hosel let you change it. If you're hitting a two-way miss, or if the ball starts right and stays right, the fix is often a face angle adjustment that squares the club up at address. And the effect is dramatic, not in yards but in dispersion. When you adjust face angle to match your natural swing path, your bad misses become manageable. Instead of the ball flying into the tree line, it's a shot that starts at the edge of the fairway and fades back toward the middle. Instead of a double bogey waiting to happen, it's a shot you can play on. This is where the biggest strokes are saved, and it's the setting golfers almost never touch. Face angle isn't glamorous. It won't show up on a launch monitor as a distance number, and it won't make a highlight reel. But it's the setting that turns your worst swing of the round into a playable shot instead of a lost ball. And over 18 holes, that's worth more strokes than any of the other adjustments combined. So here's the full picture, laid out plainly. Loft is the biggest lever for distance, and it's free, and it's already in your hands. Shaft weight is the second lever, the one that fixes your timing without you having to buy anything new. You just need to know the number to ask for. And face angle is the third, the one that turns your worst misses into playable shots instead of penalty strokes. Everything else on that hustle, the weight tracks, the extra sleeves, the secondary settings the fitting cart spends 45 minutes explaining, is optimization. It might be worth a yard or two once these three are dialed in. But it's not correction, and correction is what you actually need. That's the whole system, and it costs nothing to use, not the fitting fee. Not the new shaft, not the $600 head, just the wrench that's already in your bag and the 15 minutes it takes to stop guessing and start adjusting. The industry built an entire economy on convincing you that the answer was always the next purchase. But the answer was sitting in your hosel the whole time, wrapped in a plastic sleeve, waiting for someone to finally tell you which 3 settings mattered and which ones were just noise. Now you know. Loft for distance, weight for timing, face angle for the misses that used to cost you the whole. 3 settings ranked by what actually moves your scorecard, and not one of them required you to spend another $1. That's the whole system laid bare. 3 settings, 0 purchases, and every yard and stroke you were told only money could buy. Subscribe so the next time the fitting cart tries to sell you complexity, you already know which 3 levers are real. In the comments, write Dead Money. What you just heard is the surface. The Dead Money Golf ebook goes 7 levels deeper. Every mechanism, every markup, every number fully sourced. 120 pages of what we can't post here. Plus the vault. 5 private video investigations that exist nowhere else. Link in the description and pinned comment. Then, tell me which of the 3 settings you're adjusting first, because that's the one that's been costing you the most. The wrench is still in your pocket. The sleeve is still in the plastic. But now you know exactly which 3 turns matter, and the rest of the noise can stay exactly where it's always been, in the fitting bay, not in your bag.